Darian Mensah and his mom take the gloves off at ACC Media Days. Welcome to Overtime with Matt Moscona. I am your host, Matt Moscona. Realizing a lot of people probably finding the channel for the first time, I've hosted Afternoon Drive Radio on ESPN affiliates throughout Louisiana for the last 20 years, covering mostly LSU and the Saints. This is my YouTube channel where I get to talk about, well, everything else that I want to talk about. So welcome in. Please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you wouldn't mind. So ACC Media Days gets underway, and Darian Mensah is one of the more fascinating stories, not just in the ACC, but in all of college football, not only because he's a dynamic player who's going to make a lot of money and be the quarterback for the reigning national runner-up, Miami Hurricanes, trying to follow in the footsteps of Cam Ward, Carson Beck, but also the circumstances which led him to Miami are pretty fascinating. And in this era, I think NIL, portal, rev share, everything, I think we've all, as football fans, just come to expect the unexpected. The odd is sort of the norm now. But even still, Mensah is kind of a weird situation because it was in the 11th hour of the transfer portal that he up and left Duke after winning the ACC title for a division rival in Miami. And we could throw out labels like tampering or whatever the case may be. I think we all understand how these deals are done now. There are agents involved, and players can be coaxed into the transfer portal, and deals can be done under the table through intermediaries. And this likely would happen here with Darian Mensah. But it's the first time that Mensah has had an opportunity to speak about this. But it wasn't just Mensah. It was also his mother, Naomi, who spoke to my buddy Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo. And it's fascinating because Naomi Mensah said, quote, "People were dragging Darian for thinking it was all about the money. It wasn't. There was money either way." She cited the 2-year, $8 million agreement that Mensah had signed with Duke in July. So remember, Mensah was under contract with Duke on a 2-year deal. She went on, quote, "We looked at the big picture of where Darian wants to go. That ultimately was the choice. What was going to get him to his end goal? He could go and win the ACC again at Duke, but could he get to a natty and win a Heisman?" She went on to say, "I'd see people saying he's a traitor and has no heart and he's not loyal and jumping from school to school. There was hate like, F that guy. It was hard to see. The people who really matter understood his reasoning and were really actually encouraging him to go." It's interesting. Mensah, for what it's worth, when he left Tulane, said it's not all about business. And then at ACC Media Days on Thursday, Mensah said, business is business. So clearly what Darian Mensah is doing is making business decisions. And his mom can push back against that notion, but it's a business decision. Even if the money is comparable, he's looking at opportunities to elevate himself. And it's true. There is no loyalty or any of that in these decisions. And that's okay. I am someone who is so pro player that it makes a lot of college football fans and people who have consumed my content for a lot of time somewhat distraught. Because I think we are conditioned to follow the echo chamber. And I hate echo chambers. Things that become commonly held opinions. Maybe it's just my journalistic background. And I'm, to be very clear, I'm not a journalist. I did go to journalism school. I have a journalism degree, and I did work in news for about 4 years before I started in sports. So I am trained both academically and professionally to be curious, to ask questions, to buck trends, to not accept the norms, because that's what you do when you're a journalist. You're trained to ask questions and don't just accept things. And sometimes you lead to a dead end, which is okay, but keep asking questions. So I tend to push against the echo chamber. And I think the sports and the college fan echo chamber in this era is to say, oh, that's terrible. There's no loyalty. Where's the allegiance? It's killing college football. And the truth is, that's not true. The truth is, college football has never been more lucrative with more fans and more people watching on television. TV numbers are up. Revenues are up. Everything about college football. Salaries are up. It's winning. The sport is thriving, despite the echo chamber leading you to believe people hate this era of college football. Now, you may wish that the player that you sign stays for 4 years and is loyal and breaks records at your school and all that sort of stuff. But I would suggest to anybody that is dumping on Darian Mensah or any player that transfers for that matter, keep in mind that if you point the finger, there's going to be 5 more fingers pointing back at you. Look, I cover LSU, okay? And we can talk all we want about players that leave the program and being disloyal and whatever the case may be. LSU has had 2 Heisman Trophy winners in the last decade. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Both are transfers. Were they not loyal? Was Joe Burrow not loyal to Ohio State? Was Jaden Daniels disloyal to Arizona State? Thank God they were disloyal because they ended up at LSU. Burrow led the greatest season ever and both won Heisman trophies, and they were outstanding to watch. And for Duke, yeah, it stinks that Mensah left you for Miami. But do I need to remind you what happened last summer? He was the quarterback at Tulane until Duke threw a big time, 2-year, $8 million offer on the table and coaxed him away from Tulane when John Summerall had that thing rolling down in New Orleans. So Duke, you can't be mad at Darian Mensah for leaving because you did the same thing to Tulane that Miami just did to you. The hypocrisy in the conversation is what bothers me because you can't criticize a player for leaving and then cheer the player that transfers and celebrate the player that transfers to your school. And that's exactly what's happened here. And as far as Darian Mensah goes, I get it. Mensah is an outstanding athlete. He's 6'3", 205, he's from California, played the 24 season at Tulane where he threw for 2,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 picks. He has the opportunity to jump from the American into the ACC to go play for Duke. And what happens? He throws for 3,900 yards. Dude was 27 yards shy of 4,000. 34 touchdowns, 6 picks. He was awesome. Leads Duke to the ACC championship game. Duke, you should be fired up. You won a freaking conference title in football, and Darian Mensah is the one who carried you there. So, yeah, like incredibly impressive year for Darian Mensah there at Duke to win a conference title and gave you memories you'll remember forever. But again, the same thing you did to Tulane, Miami just did to you with the same player. So celebrate your championship, but understand this is part of how college football is now and how rosters are going to be built. Maybe the Protect College Sports Act gets passed, and maybe we have more guardrails, and maybe you don't see as much year-to-year free agency, and maybe you do see multi-year contracts with big buyouts that are enforceable, that deter players from leaving. My suggestion to Duke or to any school, if you don't want your players leaving, do what Washington did with Damon Williams. It was brilliantly executed. Damon Williams had a $4 million buyout in his deal. And so if it was LSU that was trying to coax him into the portal, well, if you're going to pay Damon Williams $6 million to leave Washington and then a $4 million buyout on top of that, that's $10 million. Well, guess what they said? Nah, we're good. And Damon Williams stayed at Washington. Put a sizable, enforceable buyout into a contract, and that's the trade-off for the student-athlete getting a big deal, and hold student-athletes to those enforceable buyouts. But I just have a real hard time criticizing Mensah for leaving Duke because his mom is right. He isn't going to win a national championship at Duke, but going to Miami, he'll have an opportunity around a very talented team to lead Miami into the college football playoff, maybe to win a national championship and do what Cam Ward did 2 years ago, which when ACC Offensive Player of the Year was a Heisman Trophy finalist and the number 1 pick in the draft. And Carson Beck a year ago, it didn't work out in the draft for Carson Beck, but he made a lot of money and got Miami to the national championship game. Those are opportunities. And she's right. The money was going to be there at Duke, clearly. The money's there at Miami. But the opportunities there, football-wise at Miami, outweigh the opportunities at Duke. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's a difference between Duke and Miami in football. Obviously, there is. You have eyes. You watch football. That's why you're watching this video to begin with. So, or listening on podcast. So, all that to say, I always caution fans to be careful with the hypocrisy. But I would also say the same to Darian Mensah's mom, Naomi. Yes, he was disloyal. Yes, he did make a business decision. Yes, he did what was best for him, not for the people at Duke, just like he did the same thing at Duke when he left Tulane. And that's okay. It's okay in this climate where that is allowed to do what is allowed within the rules. But similarly, you can't be upset at people getting upset at you if you behave in that light. Fans are fans, and they have a right to be upset if they leave. But I'm warning you fans as well. If you get upset when they leave, you can't celebrate the ones you get because that makes you a hypocrite. Let me know your thoughts. Agree or disagree? Darian Mensah and the Miami Hurricanes, very likely, they are the prohibitive favorite to win the ACC this year and make it back to the college football playoff. We'll be following along, and hopefully we'll have more content right here on Overtime with Matt Moscona. So do me a favor, if you're here with us on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, it's Overtime with Matt